against, feel free to start.
Jai Prabhupada. Let him in.
Okay.
Or one of them. Someone at the door. Somebody's at the door. Who's there? Yeah, of course you can. Man, that's fine. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Staya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamiti Namine. You can have a chair or a seat, a chair or a seat or something. Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Devasesha Parini Pastyatya Deshatarine Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvashesha Samyamadi Pastachari Katarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gauravata Vrinda Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gauravakta Vrinda Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gauravakta Vrinda Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gauravakta Vrinda Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Givaran Hari Jaya Giri Paradhari Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Givaradhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Givaradhari Jaya Givaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Givaradhari Jaya Givaradhari Yasodanandana Vrajajana Yasodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Jaya Radha Madhava Gopi Jana Vallabha Givaradhari Jaya Gopi Givaradhari
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Zoom still seems to be working, but maybe Maharaj is having... Oh, he's back then. Okay, so let me just sort that out. 1 second.
Jaya Radha Kunja Bihari Givaradhari Yasodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Bonachari Kundavihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kundavihari Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ramo Hare Ramo Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Rama Hare Rama Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Rama Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Jai Om Vishnu Pada Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtata Sadashlesi Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Ananta Kota Vaishnavinda Ki Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radha Shri Hari Gaur Bhaktivedanta Ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Ramakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhanaki Viran Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Ganga Maya Ki Yamuna Maya Ki Tulasi Devaki Bhakti Devaki Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan Sankirtan Ki Brihat Madanga Ki International Bhagavatam Ki Order Premanandi, O glorious to the assembled devotees, all glorious to Shri Guru and Shri Guru, all glorious to Shri Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Vastavakale, Shri Mate Bhakti Vedanta. Om Namo Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudeva. Haribo, Hare Krishna, can you hear me? We online again? I'm sorry, it seems to be a little problem with the internet here. I think we're devoted here. Many of them are online. Nothing on. The internet is a little, signal's a little weak. So we're just trying to adjust that. And let's see if we can carry on. Otherwise, excuse us if we have another break in a little while, but then we'll put ourselves on a different. But we'll carry on with this for now. Hopefully it will continue. Panchakalpataruyascha kripasindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna. Welcome everybody. And thank you for joining us today for hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, ripened fruit of all the Vedic literatures, Amala Purana, the
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you for your patience. Sorry, it seems like Maharaj is having some internet problems there in New Mayapur. So hopefully they can get it sorted out. So please stick around if you can, and we'll see if Maharaj can come back with a better internet connection. Hare Krishna. In the meantime, maybe I'll try and share some kirtan of Maharaj or something. I'm not sure how long they will be, so I may play some kirtan for a few minutes.
You are the co-host, okay?
Are we still there?
Yes, and the volume is on. So.
Very well. Daniel, take a seat. Thanks, Bob. Sorry about that. Technical hitches. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. All glorious to Srila Prabhupada. So today, I think we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 2, text number 19. So if you do have your Bhagavatams, you can follow on your own book, or you can, thank you, Yasik, is online also. We'll go through this verse, which Tada Rajas tamo bhava kama lobha dayasya cheta etar navidam Gitang Sadve Prasidati. Again. Tadadajastamo bhava kamalobhadayasya cheta etara navidam Gitang Sadve Prasidati. One more time. Tadadajastamo bhava kamalobhadayasya cheta etara navidam Gitang Sadve Prasidati. And that gets me the word for word. Tada, at that time, Rajaha, in the mode of passion. Tamaha, the mode of ignorance. Bhavaha, the situation. Kama, lust and desire. Lobha, hankering. Adayaha, others. Cha, and. Yea, whatever they are. Chetaha, the mind. Etaihi, by these. Anavidam, without being affected. Stitam, being fixed. Sattve, in the mode of goodness. Prastidati, thus becomes fully satisfied. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. At the time, loving service is established in the heart. The modes of passion and ignorance, lust and desire, kama, disappear from the heart. Then the devotee is established in goodness, and he becomes happy. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada, a living being in his normal constitutional position is fully satisfied in spiritual bliss. This state of existence is called Brahmabhuta or Atmananda, or the state of self-satisfaction. This satisfaction is not like the satisfaction of the inactive fool. The inactive fool is in the state of foolish ignorance, whereas a self-satisfied Atmanandi is transcendental to the material state of existence. Get me Bhagavad Gita, please. This stage of perfection is attained as soon as one is fixed. I have one in my room. As soon as one is fixed in irrevocable devotional service. It means it can't be, you can't turn back when one's fixed, it can't be withdrawn. And we're beyond stage, you could say, of, thinking maybe I should be doing something else. Or the mind is thinking or attractions towards anything other than devotional service. When we're fixed in that state beyond attraction to anything else, this is here said, the stage of perfection is attained. Devotional service is not inactivity, but the unalloyed activity of the soul. The soul's activity becomes adulterated, contaminated or colored, infected, in contact with matter. And as such, the diseased activities are expressed in the form of lust, desire, hankering, inactivity, foolishness, and sleep. I guess people don't really consider these as a disease exactly. They don't recognize this as our real disease, at least. They may consider sometimes, lust or greed or laziness is not a good quality, but it's not considered to be in of itself the root problem. Whereas we see in Srimad Bhagavatam, the activities, the diseased activities, as a result of this covered consciousness, is considered to be here very much detrimental or unconstitutional, we could say. The effect of devotional service becomes manifest by complete elimination of these effects. These are effects of passion and ignorance. A complete elimination. And that's, of course, something which almost inconceivable in the material sense of the term. I'm not sure what's happening now. Something's come on the screen which is blocking our view. The devotee is fixed at once in the mode of goodness, and he makes further progress to rise to the position of Vasudeva, or the state of unmixed sattva, Shuddha sattva. Only in this Shuddha sattva state can one always see Krishna face to face by dint of pure affection for the Lord. A devotee is always in the mode of unalloyed goodness. Therefore, he harms no one. But the non-devotee, however educated he may be, is always harmful. A devotee is neither foolish nor passionate. The harmful, foolish, and passionate cannot be devotees of the Lord, however they may advertise themselves as devotees by outward dress. A devotee is always qualified with all the good qualities of God. Quantitatively, such qualifications may be different, but qualitatively, both the Lord and his devotee are one and the same. So, in these verses from the Srimad Bhagavatam, which we've been hearing over the period of months, essential second chapter of the first canto, in this particular section, specifically dealing with the step-by-step progress of devotional service, coming into contact with the association of devotees, particularly Sadhu Sangha, consequent development of Shraddha or faith, step by step through the various processes. In the association of devotees, that opportunity to hear and chant is afforded. And then by hearing and chanting, we hear about the process of devotional service. And by executing appropriate services according to our condition, under the direction of the pure devotees of the Lord, one gradually progresses. And by the performance of devotional service, stage of practical devotional service, Vaidhi Bhakti, sadhana, practicing, bhajana kriya, one gradually becomes, or one will gradually advance the attraction for hearing and chanting will develop as the anarthas, or the unwanted attractions within our heart, start to subside. Our attraction to hear and chant about Krishna will start to grow. And the more that process goes on, and it's evoked primarily by the association of devotees. And the association of devotees, because devotees are naturally inclined, those who are under the direction or protection of divine energy, they have no particular interest in topics of this world. Their concern is topics related to the personality of Godhead. And we know that this is the greatest service in mankind. In human society, the missing link in society is this opportunity to hear from the right source. Over again, we only know a few handful of verses, it's the same verses, but the same message is given in different ways, in different places of the Bhagavatam and other scriptures. So only topics concerning the personality of Godhead, words spoken by him or about him, are the only panacea, the only relief for those suffering in the material world. And those persons who take it upon themselves to spread these transcendental directives, these transcendental topics throughout the world, they are the greatest welfare workers. A verse spoken by Radharani herself. And at the beginning of this volume of the Srimad Bhagavatam, or of this particular chapter, Nunam, that's Munayo Srishthaham Bhava Belo Kamangalam Epita Krishna Samprashno Yenatma Supasiti. Only topics, these concerning the personality of Godhead. This is the greatest welfare work to hear and chant, because it purifies the very atmosphere of the material world. And obviously the individuals who happen to be in the fortune of such topics in the association, the effect is that the consciousness becomes cleansed. It may not be complete in the beginning, partial, but the more we advance in devotional service, and the more that the anarthas are cleansed from our hearts by rendering of service to those devotees, as we've been reading, those who are free to rise, pure devotees of the Lord. When the Lord cleanses our hearts, natural attraction to hearing and chanting starts to grow in that association, in that environment. So to create this environment which is favorable for awakening our attraction, because we don't awaken an attraction, as Krishna says to Arjuna, Vishaya Vinivartante, that famous verse in the second chapter, Brahmadrishvanavartate, unless one gets a higher taste. It's not possible to give up those lower tastes. A taste for devotional service, a taste for hearing and chanting. Faith, we may carry on, but to actually progress in devotional service, there has to be some, say, turning off of the attraction towards devotional service. This is the process of mentioned in these previous verses, which is resting on the fortune of association of devotees. As we become contaminated or conditioned, both grossly, subtly, overwhelmed, lust is not just an uncontrolled sexual urge. Lust is the very concept of seeing oneself in the center, of seeing the world around us as objects for my enjoyment. It's not just only in regards to what we term sex life. It could be for anything. We maybe, in one sense, we do use that term, lusting after something. But its deep root is seeing oneself as the enjoyer. and from there different degrees of lust manifest according to the degree that we see ourselves as the center, as the enjoyer. And we, with others, sleep in this sense, we would say, the human body normally, at least in a conditioned state, needs a certain amount of rejuvenation, a certain amount of sleep. In the Bhagavad Gita, sleep is not only equated to the actual act of sleeping, but to the mere fact that we're sleeping to our spiritual identity. As a man is sleeping at night, unaware of our daily duties or our daily designation, completely oblivious. But similarly, the soul in this material world is completely forgetful, more or less totally forgetful of our actual constitutional nature, covered over like in a dream state, identifying with some temporary situations. So sleep, eating, and we just, basically speaking, we have no real idea what the value or the importance of eating is and the effects of eating, how important it is if we want to spiritually progress. We eat more or less according to the demand of our senses as much as we can, just like an animal or a bird does. Not really much difference there. Hankerings. A living entity is always hankering, but as we see and as is inferred in this chapter and this verse today of the Bhagavatam, in fact, referring to the verse in the Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Bhuta Prashanatma, Ashotatina Kankshati, Samaksarveshu Bhuteshu Madbhaktim Labate Param. Madbhaktim Labate Param. The pure devotional service begins when one is freed of hankering, freed of lamentation. That means freed of duality, of happiness and distress. No longer, mostly we mold our lives based upon this. What brings us happiness, what helps to remove distress. This is the underlying incentive, you could say, to try to improve our lot. Any form of duality has that in mind, attraction and repulsion. And as we become freed from this attraction is passion, repulsion, you could say, is ignorance. These dualities are born of this effects of the modes of passion and ignorance. And one has to rise above these, not be controlled by passion and ignorance. Even though our nature may be passionate, we shouldn't be controlled by it. Rather, it should be guided, like, for instance, Arjuna. Generally speaking, the king is Raja Rishi, Raja, sage, devotee king. Otherwise, he's just a Raja, which we also mean Rajagun, passionate. They're basically in the mode of passion. The Raja Rishi is one of the, maybe, no doubt, passionate, innate, but not controlled by passion, but guided by passion, but guided by goodness, guided by saintly brahmanas who guide the Raja, the king, so that their behavior helps to elevate society and not just entangle society in the modes of nature, as we see today. People are becoming more and more implicated in these various, you could say, effects of the modes of nature, which today's verse described here. What was the other one? Lust, desire, ignorance, of course, passion. What was that? In the purport, I think 6 points were mentioned. Can you see it there in the purport? Here it is. Disease activities, lust, desire, hankering. We're talking of hankering. Nakankshachi, no more hankering, Krishna says. That means in the material world, everything is a matter of, you could say, the object or the direction. even lust. When our lust is directed towards Krishna, although that may sound a little odd, we do see many examples of that. Sometimes, of course, the gopis are cited, though it's not really lust. It's a different kind of emotion or feeling. The lust is one of wanting to satisfy Krishna's senses, not mine. But sometimes, even like Kubja, she wanted to satisfy her own senses. So she was lusty, but her lust was for Krishna. So it also became fulfilled in her intentions, successful in her intentions, or purified. When we connect with Krishna, even though there may be some impure motive, mixed motive, or ignorant motive, whatever it may be, passionate motive, when we connect with Krishna, we are, for good fortune, we become purified. One becomes purified. Of the wrong intention, one becomes purified. And the correct intentions arise. There are many examples of that given by our acharyas. There's a famous example of one person who was a notorious thief. So when he saw a little baby Krishna covered in jewels, he wanted to steal his jewels. And being a little child, usually little children are very naive and easily influenced. So he was giving him sweets and different things to try to entice him to give him his jewels. So Krishna was saying, no, 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 no. I can't give you that. My mother will be very upset with me if I give you these jewels. And so on and on he was trying, but by the association of Krishna, gradually he gave up his initial intention to steal the jewels and actually became Krishna conscious. So by association, we may not have the association of Krishna, but it's the association of devotees who are not, say, materially motivated. The awakening of these natural qualities by association, or association of devotion, is just the bhakti a very famous verse which Srila Prabhupada often quotes, how in a devotee all the good qualities of the demigods are naturally manifested. As the heart becomes cleansed, purified with misuse of our nature, misuse of our facilities, no longer controlled by hankering, lamentation, no longer controlled by sleep and eating and laziness and so on and so forth, modes of nature, no longer controlled like that. The effect of that in the association of devotees is that the heart becomes cleansed. One starts to act in the mode of goodness, which means acting under the direction of the Vedic culture or the Brahminical aspect of life. Even if we're still passionate, we follow the Brahminical directives. And then gradually one comes to Shuddha Sattva. Shuddha means pure, and Sattva goodness, pure goodness. And then there's no more question of contamination. To act in goodness is, of course, herein mentioned as part of the process, but it means we can still be easily affected. We can take the example of Ajamil, for instance. As a child, he was acting in the mode of goodness. He was following the Brahminical standards of life under the direction of a Brahminical father, living a Brahminical way of life, but by association with the modes of passion and ignorance, he became fallen. He became attracted to passion and ignorance and fell from his goodness because he wasn't fixed. He wasn't fixed in Shuddha Sattva. He didn't have that transcendental knowledge or consciousness. Although he was pure in one sense, he wasn't in any way engaged in activities of passion and ignorance, really. But still, without that higher taste, without coming to that higher platform, the potentiality for material life was still there. The seeds were still there in the heart for sense enjoyment, etc. Just holding it back may be useful, of course, for our progress in spiritual life, being in a good environment, but it's not enough. One has to go deeper into the cause of one's consciousness, and not just root out, but absorb our consciousness in Krishna consciousness, so that any traces, any remaining affections or attractions in this world for the effects of the modes of good, passion, and ignorance are removed. They're no longer, even if they come by, they don't take root. They may pass by our consciousness, but we do not, say, embrace them. As soon as we start to embrace the effects of passion and ignorance, which is a common thing, which we probably all do from time to time, you know, you're becoming attracted to something which is an effect of the mode of passion. We may be aware of sometimes of these effects, just like for the sake of living in this world, performing one's occupation, preaching sometimes, but not that we're, say, infatuated, controlled by them. Through the nartas, they're nartas. It's not so much that the object is an anarta. The anarta is when our consciousness is attracted to these objects. With the anarta, which has to be changed. Sometimes we think that this is the Mayavad philosophy, of course, is get rid of all of these so-called distractions and objects, annihilate them all. But that does not help in any way, particularly in of itself, in awakening our real attraction. And there's every opportunity, every risk that one may again become attracted to the objects of the senses. The living entity by nature is Anandamaya Vyasa, looking for satisfaction. So without the ultimate satisfaction of relationship with Krishna, and just to have no relationship is not satisfying. Maybe for some time it's a big relief, but it's not the constitutional nature of the living entity. We can see in our daily activity we have a natural propensity to become attracted to objects around us, whatever they may be, and whatever form they may take, whether it's sound, form, gross or subtle, we're attracted in so many ways. So unless that attraction is diverted towards the higher or spiritual, not just negative, it's true that this is, you could say, an illusion to think that we do enjoy. It's true it's an illusion to think that this is me, this is mine, that this material world is my eternal abode. These may be illusions. Most those on the path of impersonalism also understand that, and they act in a way to become free, or to free of that illusion. But what is the reality? Not just to be free of the illusion. That is, that's not on their agenda. Not on their agenda. They don't have their only understanding on not this body, maybe it's understanding on a spiritual being, but what is the nature of that being eludes them. So that is the process. Devotional service doesn't just release us from the effects of the modes of passion and ignorance, or greed and lust, or anger, like that. But actually it awakens within us our remembrance of Krishna, our remembrance of our relationship with Krishna. And this is when we have a relationship, Prabhupada gives the example quite often, that just giving up a lower taste, for instance, for some form of foodstuff, in of itself, the foodstuff may not be very favorable, in a mode of ignorance and passion, we're eating meat, but just to give up eating meat, and that means what? Eating nothing? No, it has to be replaced. Like a child, if the child's playing with glass, we have to replace. You can't take that glass off the child. And it's not just a question of taking the glass off the child, and the child has nothing. The child wants something. If it can't avoid it, it's always looking for something, holding something, pushing something, pulling something. Always something has to be there, practically all the time for the senses of the child, all the time. So it's a matter of what that is. So for the human living entity, the jiva condition in this world, they're always looking for something. You know, that something should be Krishna consciousness. That hankering and that desire for Krishna, that lamentation when we don't have it, a hankering to get it, these various effects of the modes of nature can, in fact, be used in Krishna service. As they say, you remove one thorn with another thorn. So by engaging our desires in the service of Krishna, by eating food offered to Krishna, and laziness, you can say really laziness is not really a quality of which is favorable for devotional service. The cause of laziness, whatever it may be, whatever mode of ignorance. So we could say that we're not interested in the material world. In of itself, laziness is not something which we can directly engage in Krishna's service, only indirectly. But pretty much all these various effects can be utilized in the proper association of devotees to, first of all, follow the practical path of goodness. And by the practical application of the path of goodness, one can actually develop the mode of pure goodness in one's consciousness, in which stage there'll be no more attraction for the lower modes of nature. We can read a verse in Bhagavad Gita. This is in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. It's text number 20 to 23 of the 6th chapter of the Gita. Krishna says, in the stage of perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from the material mental activities by practice of yoga. This perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness, realized through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of the greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact. In other words, there's no more, not only is one situated on the platform, even if one is in a disturbing situation, because internally one is connected or situated on a higher platform, experiencing higher happiness. The effects on the lower level will not disturb one. So one is freed in that sense from the miseries. But on another platform, one is no longer interested in engaging in activities. Krishna explains that the intelligent person no longer attracted to sense gratification because he knows, or they know, that sense gratification or attachment to the sense object is the causes of misery. It causes misery. We think that it will relieve us of misery, that it will give us happiness, and there may be some drop of that, but the final result is misery, suffering, death in this material world, and all kinds of other unwanted effects. So to get free of that is another thing, not just to get freed of the effects themselves, but to get freed of the cause of the effect. Generally, people are interested in just relieving themselves from the cause of from the effect of material contamination in terms of suffering, generally. But to remove the source of that suffering is another thing altogether. That they do not know, or even if they know, do not apply. So the application of the, let's say, the directions of devotional service, the application of the process of devotional service is the method of purification of our consciousness. And as the consciousness becomes purified, one is no longer interested or attracted to the lower modes of nature or the effects of the lower modes of nature in the form of sense gratification at various times. That object may be there, but the attraction is not for them. All the time, wherever you go, we'll be faced with advertisements with persons of various natures, with various objects which, materially speaking, are meant to capture people's attention in various ways, be it nature's arrangement or be it man-made arrangements. As Maya's, say, attraction is always there. So when the living entity is no longer, because they've taken shelter, they've taken shelter of the supreme or the divine energy, of the spiritual energy, we should say. The material energy is also divine in the sense it's Krishna's energy. But when we take shelter of that energy in relationship with Krishna, then one is no longer, then one is free from the miseries of material existence. Otherwise, it's very difficult to overcome this material energy. It's impossible. Not possible unless one takes shelter of the holy name or takes shelter of the Lord, his devotees. We have to take shelter. The living entity needs shelter. Most entities are taking shelter of the modes of nature, passion, and ignorance. Even in the goodness, there's always a trace in this world, as we heard last week, there's still a slight trace of the effects of the mode of passion and goodness until we come to the real platform of Sri Krishna. Totally transcendental platform. But in material world, in spiritual world, there's no effect of passion and goodness. Only pure goodness. But to come to that platform by association, by proper activity, by association. And in that association, we hear and chant pure sound vibration, Krishna Katha. Glories of the Lord, spoken, topic spoken by him, all about him, purifying our consciousness. So it's a very important section of the Bhagavatam to bring us through the stage of what's called anartha nivritti. Anartha means unwanted desires or attractions to seeing things, objects of my sense gratification. And nivritti means to nullify, to remove, free from, to negate. No more do we have that way of seeing the world. It's more how we see things than what we see. The consciousness in which we see things needs to be changed. And that's how the process of devotion, to see things as Krishna. That's for Krishna's pleasure, related to Krishna. See others related to Krishna. See every situation in relationship to Krishna. The vision of the pure devotee of the Lord, no matter what situation we're in. There's a change in our perception. So then one becomes fixed. What does that mean when one becomes fixed? There's no more attraction to these other objects, which we said. No matter what happens in our lives, the devotee will relate it to Krishna, no matter what it is. Whatever difficulty it doesn't mean a devotee doesn't act. Sometimes acts in a way which may not be understood by conditioned souls, but their action is simply for the relationship with Krishna, to cultivate, to develop, to facilitate the awakening or the growth or the advancement on one's path of Krishna consciousness. One fixed everything one does. How is this going to please Krishna? Or how is this going to help us to progress in Krishna consciousness? Is this really safe? Just like when we chant Hare Krishna, we probably don't think much about it. We just do what we do. But, is my chanting, is it pleasing to Krishna? That's not necessarily one easy to answer, but the mere question itself means that we're becoming conscious, that we should be chanting for the pleasure of Krishna. Or is my chanting, am I chanting by trying to follow the proper process? Am I offensive while chanting? Am I attentive while chanting? The answer to much of this is probably not so favorable as it could be. Becoming conscious while we chant, or are we thinking of other things at the same time? Or are we may not be able to think of Krishna. This is a little bit like goodness, you could say, but we're trying to be attentive. Stage of pure goodness will be attracted to Krishna. Hopefully, Mayavadis. But in the stage of practice, it may just be, you could say, just trying to control our minds in some ways. We may not develop that higher taste yet, but we have that faith and we're associating with those who have. And in their association, we're careful not to mix other things into it, then we can gradually become purified. And that taste for the holy name will come. It doesn't necessarily manifest. Sometimes maybe we get a little taste higher than what we're used to. but not fixed, not completely fixed. Up and down a little bit, a little mixed, a little motivated maybe. We may have motivations also, aside from pleasing Krishna, which are also, let's say, anarthas of sorts. And naturally there's going to be a degree of this. But gradually purifying, not that our motivation is to fulfill these other objective goals. You know, my goal of chanting is to attain material happiness. My goal of chanting is to get released of karma. My goal of chanting is to get liberated. My goal of chanting is to be seen as a good devotee of something. These are all imperfect, mixed. At best, you could say mixed. At best. But at least we should be aware that this is not the goal, even if we tend to fall into these traps. It is not the goal. It's not the proper process. And the process may be a little mechanical, you could say in the beginning. You know, trying to be attentive to the sound, which means we're chanting in goodness, not effects of passion and ignorance. Of course, there may be another saturation of goodness, as we mentioned just now. I want others to think I'm good. Or because when I chant with attention, I feel good. Or when I chant with attention, just my health improves. Or I can see I'm getting free of karma. Well, again, that's just another stage to pass through. Another stage that we should be hung up on. It's just maybe one of the effects as we go through devotional service that we may have. We may have other effects that material desires, the roots start coming up. Not just the fruits on the surface, but the, let's say, the very tendency, kutas and the bijas, deep down desires which are waiting to manifest, quickly come to the surface of a devotee consciousness when we're performing devotional service. And that is the test how to advance when those seeds and those tendencies come before us, desires of unknown we never even thought we had it. We thought we were over that one. Well, we may have been over it on the surface, but the roots were still in the ground. Now, the roots may not only be seen as a particular root for a particular object or activity. Say, for instance, we've got some infatuation with a particular sport. It's not that particular sport is the problem. You may knock that sport out. You may, beat it. But the root of why we're attracted is still there and will manifest in another form. The root is we're still seeing ourselves as being joyous. We're seeing ourselves separately from Krishna. We're seeing ourselves in this way. So it will come out one way or another, whether it's this thing according to our karma or that thing according to our karma. Because it will come out. Unless we get the root out, it's going to grow. Everybody knows when you're cutting down weeds, if you don't get the root out, it grows back again, and pretty quick usually. The weeds grow quicker than the plant you're trying to cultivate, that's for sure. So the root of these weeds may still be there in our subconsciousness. Now, how is that removed? Of course, materially, we have to dig them out, or cut them out, or do something. Burn them out. We have to do something to uproot them. So it's the powerful Tirvena Bhakti Yogena. It's rare, there's no doubt about that. Krishna, I don't know who speaks that verse, but it certainly is rare that a very rare soul who engages in this pure unalloyed devotional service. How does that verse begin? Tirvena Bhakti Yogena is one of the lines. I've forgotten the whole verse. The verse we used to know a few more verses. Not using them, we forget them. That's what happens. We have to keep fresh. Keep something fresh so we can't use it anymore. But anyways, it's wonderful. Very rare, very, very rare soul, no doubt. But we're associating with such a rare soul in the form of Srila Prabhupada. So if we faithfully take shelter of his directions, and of course we have Parampara, Guru Parampara, we take shelter of them in their association, and right down to the root is a nice verse in the Nectar of Devotion. By the performance of when we carefully, and Mudanam, we carefully hear and chant about Krishna. The very root is taken out, not just the surface, not just the surface. The very desire to enjoy separately from Krishna. It's almost inconceivable to think of what that's like. And have no more interest in anything separate. When we're really fixed in our devotional service, that's when the real taste, that's when the real ruchi, when the real taste comes, when we're fixed, when we're no longer trying to extract the taste from this material world. The big thing now, feeling good. Most of our decisions are based on how I feel. But how I feel, we may think how I feel is good for me, but it may not be. It may not be at all good for us. It's only a temporary thing. Even in devotional service, many of our decisions are based upon how I feel and how it affects me, or he or she affects me. Not really understanding things in relationship with Krishna. Still seeing things with me in the center. Big decisions are made. And the material world, of course, is natural. The rules and regulations are there to try to moderate this, and try to bring this to goodness and so on. But in devotional service, all these things, they can be distractions. You get hung up on all these things. Trying to be a goody-goody in this world. Goody-goody moral principles, so-called moral principles. But as it said, Arava Bhaktasya Kato Maharaja. That even if one appears to have good qualities, Brahma said, there are no good qualities, Bhagavatam said, actually. They appear to be. But even if we accept them as good qualities, what are the use of those good qualities? Unless we engage in Krishna service, they're useless. Simply another weight around us. No real value. We have to be connected to Krishna. We have to be wholly and solely. We don't have that, but the pure devotees do. Wholly and solely motivated by pleasing Krishna. Then we can become these. So that's the secret, to connect with those whose goal, motivation, wholly and solely for the pleasure of Krishna, not simply our own speculation, our own idea of how it's to be done, but hearing from those who know how to please Krishna, all in their direction, not just some moralist. Okay, well, this is a wonderful section of Bhagavatam, and we try to learn these verses, remember them, apply them in our lives. By the mercy of the Lord, one can gradually progress through the various stages of bhakti, the highest stage, freed from the effects of the modes of nature. The Prabhupada Ki Jai. Go pray, man. Okay, I'm going to finish there. Any questions? Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, this is another verse. There's several verses here. Thank you for this one. There's another one very similar to this. This is not the one I think of. This is similar. Etavan evalokesmin pungsha nishraya sodyaha divena bhakti yogena mano mayapapunastiram. Therefore, persons whose minds are fixed on the Lord, engaged in the intensive practice of devotional service, that is the final perfection of life. There's certainly a verse which is the same thing. There's another verse which is very similar to that. I'll find it afterwards. I'm not trying to find it now. So if there are any questions, please type them in. Here it is. Someone else has put the verse in. Thank you. I thought that was the one. I didn't want to say it because I thought it was saying it. Kama Sava Kama Vamoksha Kama Daviki Kivena Bhakti Yogena. That a karma, whether you have all desire, no desires, whatever you have, desires to serve Krishna, whatever they may be, whatever desire, whatever one's desire may be, one should engage that. And what's the verse reference? Can you give us the reference? Let's read it. Rishi, can you give the verse reference, please? I'm waiting for the verse reference to come up there. Where's he gone? You got it? Rishikesh, can you put the reference, please? Okay. Maybe it's coming up. Here we go. Here it is. The verse is now on the board. Kama Sava Kamava Moksha Kamudaridi Devena Bhakti Yogena Yadite Purusham Param. And the translation: a person who has broader intelligence, whether he be full of all material desire without any material desire or desiring liberation, must by all means worship the Supreme Whole Personality of Godhead. Where's that verse from? I think that's the reference. 2:310. So different verses there explaining the process to purify ourselves of whatever the object of our desire is, and come to the pure platform, perfect platform, through the execution of devotion. So the word, put that back again, please, Nasik. Devena Bhakti Yogena. Let's go to the word for word. Tivrena means with great force, Bhakti Yogena, by devotional service. So the translation doesn't emphasize that, but Tivrena means with great force. It doesn't mean, just once a week we chant, go to the temple and sing a few bhajans or something, or we do our mechanical rounds, which is obviously important, especially in that stage. But ultimately, Tivrena with great force, when our devotional service becomes more and more complete or full, not just partial, with great force, then that effect will be there. And this is the recommendation: we should worship the Lord, this full devotional service. Thank you. Is there a purport to that one? Purport to that verse. Let's see what Prabhupada says. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, is described in the Bhagavad Gita as Purushottam, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is He only who can award liberation to the impersonalists by absorbing such aspirants in the Brahmajyoti, the bodily rays of the Lord. Prabhupada goes on here, he's explaining how whatever our desire is, ultimately is Krishna who fulfills it, even if it's a material desire. Even when we're chanting, if you have chanting offensively, it says you get material returns. If you're chanting in Namabhas, or it's kind of like, let's say, not particularly attentive, but not offensive way, or something like that, different ways. One may gain liberation, but not pure love of God. So it depends on the attitude in which we perform our devotion. Therefore, one who desires to merge with the worship of the Lord, Bhakti Yoga is especially stressed here as the means of all perfection. Previous chapters have been stated Bhakti Yoga is the ultimate goal of both karma and jnana yogas. And the same way in this chapter it is emphatically declared that Bhakti Yoga is the ultimate goal of the different varieties of worship, even of the different demigods. Bhakti Yoga, thus being supreme means of self-realization, is recommended here. Everyone must therefore seriously take up the methods of Bhakti Yoga, even though one aspires for material enjoyment or liberation from material bondage. Oh, there's still more. Kama is one who has no desire, material desire, the living being naturally being the part and parcel of the Supreme Whole, Purusham Purnam, as it is natural function to serve the Supreme Being. Just as the parts and parcels of the body or the limbs of the body are naturally meant to serve the complete body. Desireless means therefore not to be inert like the stone, but to be conscious of one's actual position, and thus desire satisfaction only from the Supreme Lord. Srila Jiva Goswami has explained this desirelessness as bhajaniya parama purusha sukamatrasa sukhata, or another in his Sandarbha. This means that one should feel happy or only by experiencing the happiness of the Supreme Lord. Let's see what the next line says. The Supreme Lord here. This intuition of experiencing the happiness, this intuition of the living being is sometimes manifested even during the conditional stage of a living being in the material world. And such intuitions expressed in the manner, this is the material goodness, altruism, philanthropy, socialism, communism, etc., by the undeveloped mind of less intelligent persons. In the mundane field, such an outlook of doing good to others in the form of society, community, family, country, or humanity is a partial manifestation of the same original feeling which the pure living entity feels happiness by the happiness of the Supreme Lord. Such superb feelings were exhibited by the damsels of Brajabhumi for the happiness of the Lord. The gopis loved the Lord without any return, and this is the perfect exhibition of the akama spirit. Kama spirit, or the desire for one's own satisfaction, is fully exhibited in the material world, whereas the spirit of akama is fully exhibited in the spiritual. Thoughts of becoming one with the Lord or being merged in the Brahmajyoti can also be exhibitions of kama spirit, if they are desires for one's own satisfaction, to be free from the material misery. A pure devotee does not want liberation, so that he may be released from miseries of life. Even without so-called liberation, a pure devotee is aspirant for the satisfaction of the Lord. Influenced by the kama spirit, Arjuna declined to fight in the Kurukshetra battlefield because he wanted to save his relatives for his own satisfaction. But being a pure devotee, he agreed to fight on the instruction of the Lord because he came to his senses and realized that satisfaction of the Lord at the cost of his own satisfaction was his prime duty. Thus he became a karma. That is the perfect stage of the perfect living being. Udaradi means one who has a broader outlook. People with desires for material enjoyment worship small demigods. Such intelligence is condemned in Bhagavad Gita as Ritagyan, intelligence of one who has lost his senses. One cannot obtain any result from demigods without getting sanction from the Supreme Lord. Therefore, a person with a broader outlook can see that the ultimate authority is the Lord, even for material benefits. Under the circumstances, one with a broader outlook, even with the desire for material enjoyment or for liberation, should take to the worship of the Lord direct. And everyone, whether akama or sakama or mokshakama, should worship the Lord with great expedience. This implies that bhakti yoga may be perfectly administered without any mixture of karma and jnana, as the unmixed sun ray is very forceful and is therefore called tivra. Similarly, unmixed bhakti yoga of hearing, chanting, etc. may be performed by one and all, regardless of inner motive. And I guess that's the end of the purport. Thank you for that. Hare Krishna. So, any comments or questions, please? Is a pure devotee able to give up sleep completely, as it is described as one of the diseased activities? Yes. The answer to that is yes. But what does that mean? We still see a pure devotee appears to be sleeping, but Prabhupada said they're not sleeping. They're resting their body, but they're conscious of Krishna at the same time. They don't go into the mode of ignorance like we do, completely oblivious to everything. They rest their body. The body as a machine may need a certain amount of rest. On the other side, how does that translate for say persons in our situation? It means that the devotee is only resting his body according to how much rest you need or sleep you need, for the purpose of being healthy, to serve the Lord, to keep good health, to be conscious, aware. We may not be on the Shuddha Sattva platform, and if one is on the Shuddha Sattva platform, the mode of ignorance doesn't affect one at all. Neither does passion, although one may use it. But for one who's not, there's always going to be an effect of ignorance to some degree, and therefore some, let's say, inclination or even sometimes satisfaction. I'm so exhausted, I just need to rest. I need to sleep, you may say. And there's a kind of a pleasure in the mode of ignorance as we go into the depths of, let's say, unawareness, darkness. Goodness knows what's going on. An attraction may still be there, but for a pure devotee, there's no attraction for that. It's a waste of time. And the next stage is you realize that it's a waste of time. You don't want to sleep, even though you still have to, because we're not on the Shuddha-sattva platform. You still have to. In the material world, everyone has to sleep something. And everyone has to go into that kind of, you could say, that mode of ignorance, but you utilize that mode by minimizing and regulating and seeing how much you need in order to perform one's duty or one's services. Therefore, a pure devotee doesn't sleep in the normal sense of the term, but sees everything in relationship with Krishna. And when it's on the Shuddha-sattva platform, they may not need to sleep at all. If they do, it's just to rest the body, like Goswami may have slept 1 or 2 hours. Prabhupada himself may have slept 3 or 4 hours a day. Some people who are very, very passionate also, sometimes they sleep very little. Their passions are so strong for what they're doing, and they don't want to stop. But for devotees, that's not the motive. They don't, not because of material passion, they don't sleep, but because they don't want to waste time and utilize every moment in Krishna's service. This way they conquer sleep. Krishna, Arjuna was also known as Gudakesh when he conquered over sleep. So he may have been resting his body, but he was always in Krishna consciousness. Okay, no problem. We had to go. Did it suppress? Did it? Loving service puts us in the mode of goodness. Should being in a mode of goodness not be a prerequisite for loving devotional service? We mentioned that directly or indirectly, saying that we follow those who are in pure goodness, although we're still ourselves affected by the modes of nature. And when we follow that path, the Vedic path, going to our karma, we may already be influenced by that. We may have motivations for doing good work and so on and so forth in the eyes of the mundaners. But for a devotee, we're not the motivation. It may be incorporated in it because of our nature, that we want to do pious activities in the world, which will attract the attention of ordinary people, so they become favorable towards Krishna consciousness, maybe. But it means that although one is still conditioned by the lower modes of nature, one is following the path, bringing us, you see in the Bhagavad Gita, what is it, 15th chapter, modes of nature, whatever it is, gradually coming to goodness, the Brahminical platform. The sadhu should follow the Brahminical head. This way, although the individuals may be primarily in the lower modes, they're following the direction of goodness. So they're on the path to goodness. It's a natural stage. It is possible to come straight from whatever situation one is to the transcendental mode by surrendering completely. But generally speaking, there'll be a mixture, even in our devotional lives. We're not still surrendered using. Gradually coming, gradually. So yes, the effects of the modes of goodness should become self-restraint and, controlling one's senses, of course. Things like that should be manifesting as we progress in spiritual life. Symptoms of the modes of goodness. And, just their lifestyle changing, devotees' lifestyle changes. Perhaps before we came in contact with devotees, we were meat eaters or smokers or addicts to something or another. And by coming in contact with devotional service, our eating habits change, our lifestyle changes, what we're attracted to changes. We're no longer interested in hearing music of the modes of ignorance and passion, but rather we want to hear music, hopefully spiritual music, but at least music which is of the more of the mode of goodness. Everything like that. Places we like to keep clean. Cleanliness is another symptom of goodness. And that's a very important prerequisite in devotional service. It continues, but when all these modes of goodness things, they basically, maybe not all, but they basically continue onto the transcendental plane. So they continue without any mixture of passion within it. This is evoked by following the guidelines of the pure devotees, the guidelines of Shastra and the sadhu. One gradually awakens or comes to this level. His lifestyle becomes more favorable, cleanliness, regulation, eating habits, so many things. What we speak, where we go, everything becomes more favorable. And the mode of goodness is more favorable for devotional service. The environment should, as much as possible, be made in that way to favor the cultivation of pure devotion. Yeah. Anything else? This one here. Okay, if there's no more questions, we'll have a little kirtan. Did I bring the cartels down? My pocket. We're finished with a little kirtan. Thank you all very much. This week is a big week. Julanyatra begins. And Balaram next week, Balaram Festival. We have a wonderful Balaram Festival next week on Friday, and take advantage of Julanyatra if you can, the Swing Festival of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ramo Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Janananda, 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 Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanandi, Hare Krishna. So thank you all very much. We'll see you all, Krishna willing. Sometime maybe during the week there will be events during the week here in New Mayapur. On Thursday morning we have initiations. On Friday we'll have Balaram's, Krishna willing, Balaram's appearance festival. I don't know if it'll be streamed or online or what, I don't know. You might be able to join us. Next Sunday, I don't think we'll be able to have class. We're flying next Sunday. I'm taking my first, theoretically and hopefully realistically, our first flight since before COVID. So it'll be an adventure on Sunday next. We're going to Europe, Central Europe, and Eastern Central Europe, somewhere over there. And then we'll be there for some time. And then we're going to Ireland for a little while, and then to England, excuse me, for Rath Yatra season, 6 Rath Yatras in about, how many days? I don't know, not many, 16 days, 6 Rath Yatras in 15 or 16 days. And then we're in between, we're going to fly to France for a couple of days to be with Indra Swami Maharaj in France, his first visit here for many decades. And we're also flying to Sweden for a short while in between for BBT book publication meetings of some kind. And after Ireland, I'm not sure what we're going to do. We'll have to see what way the world is going, where the wind is blowing, and take it from there. Unfortunately, we will not be intending to go to India for Kartik this year. There's no plan at the moment, for various reasons. One of them is because we're still keeping our fingers crossed that the French Srimad Bhagavatam and the reprints of the Bhagavad Gita and the book will be arriving during that period of time, and we'll be on a transcendental marathon distributing Srimad Bhagavatams in French as much as we can in France or wherever. And then will be the Prabhupada book mass in December. So Hare Krishna, we'll keep you informed when the next session is. But if there's a chance, we may wish you to join us during the week for some of the classes or programs here at New Mayapur. Madhava Prabhu will be here with Kirtans. Ojasvi Prabhu, they're coming for Kirtans. We were going to have Kadambakana Maharaj and Sachinanda Maharaj, but because of Kadambakana Maharaj's health, he's not coming for obvious reasons. He's on his way to India. And Sachinanda Maharaj, unfortunately, has been obligated to another program or another responsibility also elsewhere. But we do have Madhava Prabhu, Ojasvi, and a few other wonderful Kirtaniyas here. So if you maybe that will also be online, you can join us if you wish. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Bol. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you. Haribol.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Jai
Hare Krishna Gurudev.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I'm gonna say Hare Krishna.
His Holiness Janananda Maharaj ki.
Jai.
Maharaj ji.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Maharaj ji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.